Hi, this is Brendan Murphy here, and welcome to the Please Do Something podcast. I'm a singer and a songwriter who will be talking to inspiring creative people about how and why they do what they do and some of the lessons they've learned along the way. Thanks for listening. Today I talked to Steve Wall, lead singer with Irish bands The Stunning and The Walls. Both bands have racked up an impressive number of classic Irish anthems over many years, as well as still being one of the bigger live draws in the country. As an actor, he has shown versatility playing comedy in his role as Danny Moon in Chris O'Dowd's Moon Boy, period drama in The Vikings, and more recently he's been trading punches with Superman's Henry Cavill in The Witcher on Netflix. Let's get into the conversation. Steve.
Brendan.
Imagine seeing you here. And not on some pitch at the backstage of some venue, which we...
Yes, some muddy festival somewhere where we're all standing there in the cold, wet Irish summer. Although the last few days have been... maybe that's our summer, what we just had.
Maybe. But, exciting news. The Walls, new single.
Yeah, true.
So... tell me about this. I mean, it's a decade since the last Walls record. Is that right? So what was the inspiration behind the single and the forthcoming album?
Well, basically, without wanting to disappoint you too much, it's an album of rarities and previously unreleased material. Okay. So we had all of this music sitting on hard drives, and some of it had begun life on ADAT tapes and various recorded formats over the years. Tracks that never made it onto albums, some tracks that were B-sides that never got heard. Then there was some tracks that were never appeared on anything, but that were really good. So I spent, over the last couple of years, I just sort of decided to trawl through all of this, and I saw that there was a wealth of some really good stuff. And quirky stuff, instrumentals. And so it took me ages, but I just spent time, a lot of it had to be remixed and remastered, of course. And some of it needed little extra bits recorded here and there. I just thought, why have good music sitting on hard drives, never to be heard? And I just thought, well, let's get it out. So Chrome Heart was actually originally recorded in the sessions for The Walls' last album, which came out in 2012. So the song was recorded 10 years ago, or a little more. And it's really only seeing the light of day properly now. And I just always thought the song had something. It's kind of cool, and it's that typical kind of Walls guitar riff sort of thing with a groove. And then we just decided, because it's so difficult now for musicians releasing new music, there's that usual head scratching thing that happens every couple of years. How do we do this? Are we going to manufacture CDs? In this case, no. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for us to do vinyl either, because it takes a year now. You have to wait almost a year to get them delivered. Oh, the waiting times are crazy. And it's getting worse and worse all the time with all this supply chain stuff that they're talking about, raw materials and everything. So we just thought, you know what? And as well as that, for a band like The Walls, vinyl would be such a niche thing anyway, and we wouldn't see our money back. Plus, the band isn't really a going concern. The Walls are not gigging like we used to, out as a 4 or 5 piece. Myself and Joe have been doing some 2-man shows, just the two of us, where we play a selection of Walls music, some stunning songs, and some newer songs that myself and Joe have written between us that we've never recorded. So essentially, that's how the album came about. It was existing material, and that deserved to see the light of day. And so we made a video for Chrome Heart, basically because we just needed another kind of a tool for people to just hear the song. Because social media and everything now is just, it's full of links. Here's a link to my song on Spotify. Here's a link to my song on Apple Music or whatever, or Bandcamp and all of that. And we just felt we needed another thing. It's just more ammunition, the more things you have to spread out there. So we made, a low budget video, essentially just to get people to hear the song. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think I've been in the last, and we've spoken before about this, but I've certainly found since we put out the last Walls album in 2012, I've become just increasingly more disillusioned with the music business. And I suppose because I also was, up to that point, I was the only one in the band that didn't have something else, another iron in the fire. And all the other lads had in the Stunning and the Walls had different things going on. They were either playing with other people or teaching and doing different kind of jobs. I was the only one that didn't have anything. And I was trying to then book gigs for the Walls and the Stunning, depending on other people's availability. So I was working around, like, as one of the lads in the Stunning plays with Christy Moore, and Derek used to work for Tommy Tiernan. So I was constantly going onto Christy Moore's website and Tommy Tiernan's website to see when the lads might be available. Right. So, after a year of doing that, I just went, to hell with this. Like, I need to have something for myself. So that's kind of how I ended up going back into the acting thing. But it was also driven by a frustration with the music business, because we've both been around long enough to know the old system of putting out records and doing it that way with a label or whatever,
Yeah.
And where you might see something coming back from album sales. When we put out Paradise in the Picture House in 1990, one great thing that we didn't really know at the time was we owned that album, which it turned out to be a godsend, because we couldn't get a record deal. So we decided to put the album out on our own kind of production company, and we called it Rainy Day Productions or something. And we licensed it to Solid Records in Dublin. So after 3 or 5 years or something like that album reverted to us, which turned out to be the best thing ever. So when we reissued it in 2003, and that was the reason the band reformed, was just to promote the reissue. When we reissued it, we made decent money on the sales because it was coming straight to us. Then we realized how much record companies were taking.
Yeah, I mean,
from the sale of CDs, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and what they cost to manufacture, and how much the labels were taking from it. So, but we were actually very cognizant of that, even in 1990, because we didn't want our fans getting ripped off, and we put on the artwork, we put "Pay no more than £5" on, and so even when we reissued it 10 years later, we sold it at a fair price because it was coming straight to us,
Yeah.
But since then, as you know, all that is gone. And now when it comes to putting out something, like I was doing this because Chrome Heart, the single, came out just a week ago. And literally I was scratching my head thinking, and I had, long conversations with Joe. How do we do this? How do we put it out? And what do we do? And it's just a taster with an album to come. And how do we really put the album out? Like, it's that thing, because it's constantly changing, and it's becoming more and more complicated because there are so many platforms now that you have to take into your campaign or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. I mean, I wonder, the young kids, that are 18 and 19, do they think it's not complicated? Do you know what I mean? I mean, is there any danger that we just don't have the same understanding? Or, I don't think that there is. I mean, I think everybody is scratching their head trying to figure out what is the model. You sort of go, okay, well, you make money when you do shows. Now, you do make money through publishing as a songwriter.
That's if you're getting airplay, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, but I mean, do you not think that the songs bank up? You know what I mean? I mean, if you've written "Brewing Up a Storm" and you've written 2:10 and you've
half past two, Brendan.
What? It's not 2:02, is it? Half past two. It's not 2:02 already, is it? Jesus, I'm halfway through the interview. No,
2. 2 was the B-side.
Yeah. Right. Okay, heads will roll that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Do you not feel a sort of a...
You're trying to put a positive spin on it.
No, I'm not trying to put a spin on it, Steve.
I know.
I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go... Like, if I'm listening to me and you talking, if I was in a sort of a songwriter or something like that, I'd be going,
Oh, jeez, I'm just going to give up. No, there's just no point. I've noticed that putting out stuff over time has meant that, now I have a healthy publishing, healthy by a certain standard, not.
But you're talking about like you're building up a catalog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you not find you would? Surely that's must be the same case with you, because you didn't do publishing deals with your songs, did you?
No, we never had a publishing deal. I think that is something maybe that we're aware of, but I think a lot of younger artists, I think a lot of new music is coming out and it's almost ephemeral. You know what I mean? It has a much shorter shelf life. And I think younger artists are sort of used to that, or because that's the only world they know, where something is constantly scrolling. You know what I mean? If you don't keep something at the top of a social media feed or something, and a week goes by, then it's lost. You know what I mean? So you have to keep bringing out things to stay in the public eye with a new release or whatever. I think the thing I've noticed is that the artists that are kind of making headway definitely have a strategy. Say, take an example of a band like Fontaine's DC. I think they're doing a great job. I think they've got a great manager. I don't know who's managing them, but I think they're doing a brilliant job because they're looking at the bigger picture. They're putting out the band are obviously, because they've got management and a label or whatever. The band are being allowed to create, so they're being creative. They're writing lots of stuff. They're putting out records relatively quickly. Lots of good video content, and they're creating a buzz. They've managed to appear on a couple of American TV shows and all that. I think I think it's a really good model, the way they've been doing it. And some people have said to me, I don't know if you've ever got this, but after the Stunning split up for the first time, people over the years, would say to me, God, it's an awful shame you never made it. Get that. The Stunning were a great band. It's an awful shame you never made it. Why did you never make it? And, and then, I mean, probably at the time I never knew we'd be reforming 10 years later and doing it again with the same lineup and all. But one thing I've come to realize is that success is also to do with longevity. Like, totally. If you can still be around, like you guys, you can still be around 30 years later, still doing what you do, putting out new music, doing shows. That is success. You know what I mean? You don't have to have headline billing in international festivals all over the world, all that kind of thing. Because there's an awful lot of artists in America who do very well in America, but we don't know them from Adam in Ireland. Same in the UK, and that's a huge part of it. And I think we probably didn't realize it back in the day, but we were probably looking at the bigger picture in a way, because we weren't scrolling on phones. You put out an album, and you could get at least a year by releasing 3 singles, maybe even 4 singles from an album. Yeah. And it kind of, an album could have a lifespan of 1 or 2 years. Yeah. And I think the younger artists now don't see that sort of lifespan. You know what I mean? Stuff is just getting chewed up, and it sort of seems to disappear into the ether a little faster.
But a part of me goes, well, I mean, if you play devil's advocate, you could say that when we came out, I think you're right. In terms of the success thing, as you're saying about you guys never made it, or this guy's never, that's sort of, you get over a hump, and people just stop saying that anymore because you end up as an institution after a certain amount of years. And in the same way that no one ever says to a folk act, you never made it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they don't seem like they're going for that. And I think when a band like yourselves or ourselves keep going, when normal people would have given up, I think there's a certain amount of people that go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe they weren't going for that. And then they start scratching their head and they're going, maybe they just really, it is a vocation, and they are, artists who just want to keep making music. And then I think you stop getting ask that question. Plus, as you say, the entertainment business and the music business is now so niched and splintered that basically having any sizable audience is actually legitimate because it is sort of shifted, where, you can have the same, an artist like yourselves or ourselves could have the same amount of views as a relatively well-established Americana artist.
Yeah.
Globally. So I think it has sort of shifted. And that's one thing that I like, that I'm finding exciting, that I'm going, okay, all I have to do is focus on our audience and try and keep them close to it. But the other side of that is that, and I think this is an issue, is that in the old days, there was lots of money flying around, but relatively few acts, really. So if you got a record deal, you'd already made it, as far as a lot of people, were concerned.
Do you think, though, I know, I don't want to come across as negative, but what I'm always seeing is, and particularly I think the pandemic kind of drew attention to a lot of, let's call it weaknesses in the music industry that we've been aware of for a long time.
Yeah.
And all of that became much more apparent when artists, couldn't go out and perform, which is, like you say, is really the only main source of income at the moment. So take that away and you look at it and see what's left. And then you see, I firmly believe that the music industry in Ireland is broken.
Okay.
It's its own worst enemy. I think the music industry doesn't work together. I think, when I say the music industry, I'm including in that radio, the media, be it online or streamed or whatever.
Yeah.
And then with the promoters, the talent agencies, the artist bookers, all of that, I think everybody is just beavering away doing their own thing, and they're not really helping each other. I remember, years ago, you guys were signed to a UK company, and so were myself and Joe in the late 90s. We were signed to Columbia Records, and we were based in London for a couple of years. And what was an eye-opener about that was you could see that the UK record industry at the time was creating its own stars. They were putting artists that maybe a lot of people hadn't heard of on the front page of the NME or Melody Maker or Somebody's Next Minute. They're doing well, and they're on Q magazine and all these different industry magazines. So they were basically creating the stars of tomorrow, because the music industry needs that. It needs artists that are making a name for themselves and putting bums on seats and selling records and whatever, or in the case of now, streaming or whatever, and headlining festivals. And so the Irish music industry isn't doing that. And that's what we need. We need to be creating our own stars of tomorrow. They don't all have to be mega stars, but we need to create an industry here. We need to stand behind it. There's still the same old thing where radio stations, they'll play the new Kings of Leon track before they'll play the new Stunning track.
Yeah.
And I'm just using us as an example.
Yeah.
But when I saw just a couple of months ago playlists for the top 10 most played tracks on Irish radio stations, mainstream daytime radio, and there were only 2 Irish artists in it. Now maybe it was top 20. There was 2 Irish artists in there, and they were both artists on major labels, Gavin James and Niall Horan.
Yeah.
There's nobody else in there, and these are the top played things.
Yeah.
So how can there be another 4 of us, or another The Stunning or Emotional Fish, or Something Happens and all that? Because the difference was, back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was only one music station, and it was 2FM. So they weren't looking over their shoulder at, here's other stations coming up and taking their listeners away. So they played loads of Irish music, like our bands and Emotional Fish, Something Happens, the Saw Doctors. They were always on the radio. And that meant so much.
But, for a start, radio is about young. It's not like Tom Waits is being played off the fucking air. When people get old, let's just call a spade, then they're not going to get championed. The radio, it's about pop music. It's a generation. It's not the next generation's job to support the last generation's artists. That's not their job. So we represent, and, that's my gun at stake. So it's just like, you're never going to get that. The global stars, for the most part, are made, it's how big a percentage of an audience can you get in that first bang? Are you going to go global or not? Or are you going to go national? So you go global like your U2 or Ed Sheeran. You're national like the Stunning or the 4 of Us. Or you don't go at all like Cactus World News. And that's it. You're frozen you're frozen in those people's minds as they were big then. And then if you keep going, essentially it's a slightly different thing after that, I think.
So basically, what I was just saying was that I think there's a number of things that could really help the Irish music industry. And one would be, there's an airplay issue, obviously, and we all know that. And I think that when there's funding there for certain things, I think a lot of it, and we've seen where funding has gone over the pandemic as well, and some of it good, some of it maybe not so good. But I think in the long term, there should be a kind of a minister for music, or there should be somebody that's basically looking at the music as opposed to just general arts. Because very often they think, give the money to the Arts Council and then the Arts Council will take care of music.
Yeah.
So over the pandemic, we've kind of seen, so that's how the funded sector works. Mm-hmm. We see there's all of these different bodies that maybe don't generate much money, but they're funded by the Arts Council. So you can see where funding is going. Then during the pandemic, all the rest of us that have been in the independent sector, self-employed, working to get bums on seats and sell tickets and taking those risks. And all of a sudden, all of us are going, so there have been funds there for certain projects all along. And I think that it's given people in the industry a chance to have a look and see how it's been working and how it could work better. And I think one area that there's always been a lack of in Ireland is management. And as it's gone on as well, it's harder and harder for managers to actually make money because there's only one stream now to get your percentage out of, and that's live gigging. And I think that there should be a fund. There should be something where, say, a management company can get funding towards maybe office space and just overheads, and maybe a kind of a basic wage that they can avail of maybe for a certain number of years till they get off the ground. Yeah. Because it's we know that that Ireland is small and it's really important to get out there into the world. And to do that, you need resources, you need contacts with bookers and stuff in the UK and Europe. Yeah. And then maybe even America. America's very expensive, but we've got Europe on our doorstep. You don't need a visa. Don't need to go through all that. You could get in a van, go to Rosslare, get off in Calais or whatever, and it's all there. But just if managers had access to that, it's so hard for a manager now to just manage an act or two because there's very little money in it. Trying to establish a new act, if you're only getting a cut, say, from live performance fees. Yeah. And I think things like that to really sort of, because if they have it in Enterprise Ireland, have grants for people starting new manufacturing businesses and all this kind of stuff. So young startups can avail of grants and all. But there's nothing in our industry. And yet, the music industry, if we have any success stories here, they're exploited by everyone from politicians to Fáilte Ireland and all of this kind of stuff forever, Yeah. Whereas we're doing very little to help new talent and to get them onto the world stage, even just the national stage. Yeah. It's so difficult to get on the radio. I think the industry is its own worst enemy here. And I think it'd be great to have someone in the department maybe say, well, maybe there should be some kind of forum that meets every so often or some body that overlooks the music industry and is there to assist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, I suppose there has been a few of them put forward over the last couple of years. I suppose the trick is getting one that everybody would think, now we're talking, you know what I mean? Where everybody, because there's so many vested interests and various,
But even if it was just one, say there was just one feature of it was just, say, to assist managers. Okay. I think that, managers are really important. When you see the amount of work that we all have to do around the release and all that, and then you're trying to write music as well and be creative. Yeah. You end up getting snowed under with just the administrative stuff of getting your music on all these forms and all that. There's so much involved in it. If you had somebody who was basically getting a grant to do this, and it's like, give it for 2 or 3 years and see what they can do until you're up and running. I think that'd be a great start. And that managers of, whether they're managing country bands or trad bands or rock bands or whatever, could end of this. Yeah.
No, it's a good idea. Yeah. And that's a funny thing about you, I think, is that you're a funny mix of, you're quite political in a sort of, in a good way, you've never thought about, I mean, you know, I know Jacob will add it to the jobs that I already, you've talked to me about this before. And I thought, obviously from my point of view, somebody like I go, God, imagine if Steve just went, all right, I'm going to do this job, whatever. But obviously you've got the acting, you've got the stunning, you've got the walls. I mean, I don't know how you sleep at night, for God's sake.
I know, yeah.
It hasn't put you off moving forward with the walls, obviously, or you wouldn't be releasing, or it hasn't put you off moving forward with the stunning, which is twice around the world there only a couple of years ago. Are you feeling your way back to new music, or are you actually going, okay, well, we've done all this music and let's dig up the stuff that we've already worked on and let's put it out and see how I feel about the music industry before I invest another X amount of months and years working on a new album while I'm also got the acting career? I mean, is that what's going on? Are you sort of?
I don't know. I don't have any plan. I love music, and it's what always kind of drove me from an early age. I love music, and I was always interested in trying to make my own music one day. You know, that was always there. You know,
me too. Yeah,
music is probably the one thing that's still good. Music still makes the hair stand on end. Like I actually. If I hear something really good, it's almost like my body tells me first before my mind. Yeah. You know, I'll feel like the hairs on my arms or the back of my head will stand up and I hear something and I go, wow. I mean, I've had those moments. Sometimes it could be watching a movie or something like that and a piece of music comes on and I go, what the hell? And I'm getting at least you have Shazam now, whereas before you had to try and pause the credits and read it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a funny thing. Like music has always had an effect on me and almost in a physical way. You just hear something and it just resonates with you. So I still have that, you know, and I've always wanted to make music that, same with, you know, the rest of the lads, that we nearly listen to ourselves.
Of course,
like I don't really listen to my own music that much, but we're not making music that doesn't fit with our sensibilities. We're not making music just to be commercial or just to get bums on seats. We are, you know, we're making music that we like. So I think I haven't been the most creative really over the last couple of years, but I am looking forward to writing some stuff again. Like myself and Joe were talking recently about maybe trying to write another couple of songs for the Stunning, put out a couple of singles, singles.
Yeah.
And we were just shooting the breeze really, you know. He has a song that's really nice. It's a kind of it's a lovely sort of a ballad mid-tempo thing. We don't have much of them. I always, you know, I suppose from the old days of playing in nightclubs and all that.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't afford a ballad.
Yeah, we were playing to stand-up audiences. It was really kind of like send them home sweating stuff. You might do one slow song.
But you were following the disco a lot of the time.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? You had to beat the disco.
Yeah. So I do think about music all the time, you know, and I'd like to have a bit more time just to be creative. I do find, however, that when you get involved in kind of campaigns for things, you know, be it airplay or that, or even releasing your own stuff, you spend so much time on the computer and social media. And I have to admit, like, I am one of those people that I'm bad manager of my time. And I get sucked into that sometimes. I'll answer something on social media. Next minute, I'm in a kind of a, oh shit, I shouldn't have gone near this. I've lost 3 hours. Yeah. Or I go on YouTube to check out something, maybe a festival or a venue or another artist or whatever like that. And next minute, the sidebar down the right-hand side is showing me, oh, there's something by John Lee Hooker I never saw before. Or, you know, here's stuff. Or the Ukraine war, you know, you get sucked into, you know, a big firefight or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just find, my God, our devices now are just, it's a battle with them. It's a
battle, yeah, in a way that certainly it wasn't. I mean, when we were starting, you know, music was so central to the youth experience. There was less distractions really than there is. I mean, that's a bit of a downside of your start. I mean, there's so many distractions, and as you say, there's so many ways that you as the artist are expected to promote your own stuff. You know, and never mind the sort of writing and recording of it. And can I ask you another question? This is because I am genuinely curious about this one, which is, you talk about the music business. let's talk about the acting business, film business, whatever you want to call it, versus the music business. Because that to me seems just as sort of hard to fathom in a way, you know what I mean, in terms of like, or to navigate, in terms of like, if you're talking strategies or whatever, you know, you get a good agent or I don't know. I mean, have you found that fulfilling? Does it fulfill a different part of you than the music does?
It is different. Yeah, it's definitely different. And I didn't really know what that was until probably recently enough. I only got my first acting gig in 2012, which was Moon Boy. And then, and it's been kind of, I mean, some actor friends of mine would say, oh, it's really happened fast for you, you know, whereas to me, it's not fast, you know,
Right.
like 2012, it is 10 years ago. And it has been slow enough, but probably in a good way, you know, because I had to learn the ropes. And also I found it really scary. Like some jobs just scared the shit out of me, really, because it's like, I suppose, going on stage, doing a gig. You kind of forget how nerve-wracking that was when you were much younger. And I mean, I'd still get nervous, but in a good way. You're experienced, and if something goes wrong, your guitar amp breaks down or the PA goes, you're not going to have a heart attack anymore. It's like that stuff has happened before. You'll deal with it. But with the acting thing, it was a new level of scarediness, and that kind of a different kind of focus that I had to try and learn. And like, it's not like somebody makes you forget a lyric on stage or something, and then you're playing with your brother or other bandmates or whatever, and that sometimes it's not noticed that you repeat a verse or whatever like that, or you wander over to someone, what's the first line of that verse again? But with acting, there's no backup like that. And I found it quite nerve-wracking on the bigger productions. Like, I mean, Moon Boy was a fairly small production, but then the next thing I was on was Vikings after that. And that was a big learning experience. It's a big behemoth of a production with hundreds of people working on it, and cast just come in and they go and they get killed and there's no rehearsal. So you basically have to turn up and nail it. And you have to know what you're doing. You have to know your lines. And you could get a curveball. The director might say to you, generally you run the lines before you do the take. You run the lines with the director. The director might want to just hear it. And then there might be, he or she might say, could we just cut those lines there? Or maybe, you know, in that scene, could you not do that? And I didn't know that's how it worked. You know what I mean? You just have to turn up and deliver it. You know, the director might give you a few notes just beforehand. And those big shows, that's the way they work, you know. So it was kind of scary. It was all about the focus. And that was not something I was used to. It was that kind of personal inner focus, you know. And also, you can't just focus on yourself. You have to react to the other actors to make it real. So I found it fascinating in a way. And I did a bunch of different like acting workshops and reading books and all. And I actually found the whole thing so different to performing music. It was just so different. And I found it a great challenge. I was kind of scared by it as well.
How did you decide I fancy doing a bit of acting? What happened?
I was acting before The Stunning.
Okay.
So before starting The Stunning, I had spent a couple of years with the Druid Theatre Company in Galway. But just really as a sort of, I went in there and worked like as assistant stage manager and sound operator. I was also had a couple of walk-on parts. I mean, what I was interested in was acting. Okay. They give me all kinds of other jobs, you know. And but it was fascinating because I was watching actors at work all the time from the side of the stage, or I was the sound operator on a show called Conversations on a Homecoming with Tom Murphy play, and it was just that Druid ensemble were just amazing. And I was just watching and I suppose learning, and I was with them for a couple of years, and then I moved to Dublin to try and pursue an acting career and got nowhere.
Right.
This was pre-internet days. You know, by the time you'd hear about a play or something like that, it was already cast. And so it was after a year of being on the dole and getting no auditions or anything, then I decided, you know what, I'm going to start a band. Because it was one night I was at a gig in the Underground in Dame Street. And there was loads of new Irish bands starting around that time in the wake of U2's success and everything. And it kind of dawned on me one night that I didn't need for somebody to kind of like at an audition to say, you've got the part. Now you can work. You know, that whole idea of being so powerless that somebody else makes the decision whether you're going to work or not. That sort of was getting to me after a while. And I thought, you know what, I could start a band and I could do that. I did the classic thing, put an ad in Hot Press saying vocalist seeks, blah, blah, blah. And that's how the Stunning started.
Right.
So then fast forward to like 2010 or something, a long time later. And I was, like I mentioned earlier, I was the only one in the band that didn't have another iron in the fire. And things seemed to be slowing down a bit. The music industry was changing fast. And I thought, you know what, it was kind of on my mind. I never really gave the acting a proper go. I never got a chance. In the space of a fortnight, I had 2 just chance meetings. I bumped into a woman called Maureen Hughes, who's a casting director. And she worked in Druid when I was there. And she was also the Stunning's tour manager for like 6 months or something one time.
Yeah.
And Maureen, in the intervening years, had become a successful casting director. And I bumped into her one day in Dublin and she said, there's a bunch of us that's taking over the factory on Barrow Street. You probably would have rehearsed there.
Yeah.
And a load of film people took it over. And they were running an acting workshop, a screen acting workshop. And Maureen said, look, it's a 4-day thing. Would you be interested in coming along? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I went to that. I was the oldest one in the class. They were all like in their 20s.
Yeah.
And but it really, really, I was really buzzed up afterwards. And I thought, you know what, I want to keep doing this. And around that same time, I bumped into an actress called Jane Brennan, who had been in the Druid play Conversations on a Homecoming that I worked on. And I just bumped into her. I hadn't seen her in years. And she said to me, why did you ever give up acting? She said, I thought you had something. You shouldn't have given it up. And it was funny. It was just 2 chance meetings all within the space of a month. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a go now so I kind of got stuck into it. And I kept up all the actors that were on that initial acting workshop, stuck together and started to meet up every week. And we had like Jack Rayner. Do you know the actor Jack Rayner? Young Irish actor Jack Rayner. He was in the group, and he started a private Facebook page for us all, and we would communicate on that. We'd meet up down in the factory on Tuesday evenings, and somebody would have a script like Good Will Hunting or something like that, or whatever. Who's Afraid of a Virginia Woolf? And you'd learn scenes and do them together and film them on iPhones and smartphones, whatever. So, I started to just really enjoy it and the challenge of it and trying to make it real and to get good at it. And I was just like lapping up everything I could read and watching interviews with great actors and just kind of learning stuff and then doing auditions. And when you'd get cast in something, then it was like an opportunity to just try and see, can I get into that zone where I'm not thinking about the lines, where I'm actually almost like becoming this character, and different methods. There's all different kind of styles of acting and methods. So there was a lot of interesting stuff to read and to try out.
Uh-huh.
So I've just really been enjoying it.
And the Moon Boy one, which, I mean, I'll tell you, I thought you were brilliant in Moon Boy, but it sort of looked like a very relaxed. You looked very relaxed. And obviously you were playing, a relaxed agent. And obviously it was sort of connected to the music business, and it was like we've all met loads of people like that person.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you did? Did you just channel about 3, 4, 5 people that you?
There was about
remember?
3 or 4 fellas, all right, that I had in mind, and I probably had a lot of people to base it on.
Yeah.
And there was a few little things I brought into it myself that Chris O'Dowd kind of liked, like the whole thing. There was a scene where in the town square, and I actually end up telling young Moon Boy about the facts of life and all that. Get yourself a skin mag. you'll find out soon enough. All these things. But I made up a whole bit on the spot about Bono and the Edge. And
was that you? Was that? Did you make that up?
I made up that, and because I knew that was the kind of thing. Because he said something about, there was a line in it about him. Did you ever meet U2 or something like that? And I made up this thing about, oh, sure, I was the Edge's, I was the roadie, his plectrum roadie. Yeah. And I said something about, something about the Edge is the real boss in that band and all that. And, he makes Bono carry the gear and all this kind of stuff. I had a bit of fun with it. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that. And Declan Lowney, who directed that first series, was brilliant. And he had directed all the Father Ted stuff. So he was just so easy to work with. And I was
He's
really...
an old music critic. A music critic.
Yeah. No, Declan Lowney did... No, he's director. You're thinking of...
Was he not write for Hot Press at one point? No, was there? Maybe...
Am I mixing up? Have I got his name?
No, I could be mixing them up. But you know what I'm finding interesting here is the fact that you were allowed as an actor. Is that an unusual situation? With Moonboy, was it this sort of thing where Chris O'Dowd was sort of looking for people to add? I mean, is that the way it works? Or, I mean, like in Vikings, I can't. Yeah, I mean,
no. Those bigger shows are very heavily scripted. And if you were to make a change, really, it would have to go through all these different channels up to producers. And you'd have to wait for some fecker in LA to get out of bed the next day to approve a script change or something like that, Yeah. But working with Chris and Chris is called Vincent, his surname escapes me now. But they were always there, obviously on set. Okay. And Declan as well was really open to some of that improvised stuff, like there was another, I think there was a scene where I was going through the photographs. Uncle Danny's going through photographs that he doesn't tell. He actually found them on a bus, but there were somebody's tourist photographs around Europe, and he's showing them pictures of some cathedral taken from the vantage point of his coffee table, and there's a big coffee cup on it. And I had a thing at the time, and it just came into my head. I said, I see that coffee there. I said, that's called a cappuccino. and they kept it in because I just did it in one of the takes. I was like, because Deirdre O'Kane was on it as well. She was the mother, and Peter McDonald, and they were hilarious. I mean, they're comedians anyway, the two of them. Yeah. So we were constantly kind of ribbing each other about it. But I came up with this thing like, see that they call that a cappuccino. And basically that was Uncle Danny hearing it wrong, a cappuccino. He thinks it's a cap of chino. Yes. But they left it in, So that was a great one as a first gig to do,
So you must have been pretty relaxed during those sessions to be throwing in lines. I mean, did it not fail you with cameras? I know it's a small crew, but still, I mean, it's... You've got a bunch of comedians there.
I know.
And I think fair play to you. You're just
well. The first day, Brendan, was really nerve-wracking, and that was the scene actually of where Uncle Danny is busking Town Square in Boyle with young Martin Moon with his nephew. I mean, I remember that morning. I was shitting myself because they bring you onto set. It's early, and it's as the sun is coming up, and they're getting ready to shoot to make the most of the day. And then they had cordoned off, and there was loads of people in the town had all kind of gathered around the square, were watching this. Of course, they can't hear anything. And I was shitting myself. And I just had to sort of take a deep breath and go, okay, just cut all of that out and just focus on it. So it was great practice. And it was lovely working in a way, with like Declan, the director, he was just so easy. He was really encouraging. Like I had said to him beforehand, I said, Declan, this is my first gig. And he was great. Like there was a funny scene where Uncle Danny is waiting there's an avenue going into the school, and he wants to have a word with Martin, his nephew, and he's waiting for him there. And basically he's there, and I had brought a few things like, those lads are always rolling their own cigarettes and all. So I had this whole rolling cigarette thing going on, and I'm behind the bush having a rollie, or is it a joint? You wouldn't know. And then, Martin is come down, they go, action, so Martin, he's walking by and all that, and Uncle Danny had come out behind the bush, and I say, Martin, come over here, whatever. And then it was like, cut. And Declan came up to me and he said, Steve, he said, you look like a child killer. He said, could you just, like, when you come out, like, just soften your face a bit and maybe have a slight smile, because you look like, you just look really scary. So, you know what I mean? I just laughed when he said it, and I said, I know what you mean, Yeah. And so it was just wonderful to be able to, work with someone and have a laugh. He was able to tell me, give me a little note like that, as opposed to some directors who would shout something like that across the room,
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw it on social media, like, I think it might be The Witcher, where I don't know whether you were it looked like you were videoing stunt people.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, it looked amazing. It was like, is that you hanging around a set basically when you're not on, and you just go, let's see what they're doing? Is that what?
Because they, for The Witcher, there was that sort of battle, there was that fight scene. And I had to fight Henry Cavill, who was like Superman. And when I got cast in that, I went down to the local gym in Dublin, in Harold's Cross, and I just thought, oh shit! Like, I mean, these some of these fight things are very physical.
Yeah.
And they had us in Budapest for 4 days rehearsing it and all of the choreography with spears and swords and all. And it's just these stunt coordinators. I mean, they're incredible. And this thing was like, there's people, you have to know when to duck and step aside and all this. And they're swinging. Now, the swords are made of bamboo, but they look real. Some are rubber, you know, and all that. So they take it very, very seriously. And you have to be quite fit. It's very easy to turn on an ankle or something. So then that scene was actually filmed in a cave in the Canaries. And it was all uneven rock and loose ground and all. And it was deadly. So you've got all pads on your knees and elbows and all in case you fall and everything. So we had been rehearsing in this cave, and then the stuntmen had to rehearse the bit where there's a kind of an explosion and they're all blown out of the cave. So I hung around just to watch that, to see how they were doing it.
Yeah.
And I filmed a bit on my phone, and it was incredible. They all had these harnesses attached to them and some kind of like pneumatic things like that would, I don't know, really strong pneumatic pumps or something like that. And at a certain thing, a button is pressed and they're all yanked off their feet and pulled through the air, and they land on a low, well, they hope they land on a series of kind of mattress type things, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, that little video that I'd put up, they didn't mind it because it was after the thing had aired. And I put it up.
Right.
But one of the stuntmen broke his thumb on that one. He just landed badly.
Wow.
Because I just heard a roar and he was walking off and his thumb was just dangling off his hand. I was, oh, Jesus. It's so easy for that stuff to happen, you know.
You went down to the gym in Dublin and you trained for like how long? Well, you know, did you go for like a couple of days, or were you training like for weeks?
I had just, I think, about 4 weeks before I had to go. And I said to the guy, I said, listen, how much do you charge for personal training? And he said, well, what are your goals? He said.
Yeah.
And I said, I have to fight Superman in 4 weeks' time. And he looked at me like, don't be wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I said, no. I said, listen, I'm cutting you, but I said, I'm supposed to be fighting the guy who played Superman, you know, in this thing. And I told him what it was for. And I said, I need to see if I can bulk up a bit. Because Henry Cavill is huge. And the guy just laughed, you know.
Are you facing him? Are you facing a stuntman and he's...
Oh, no, I'm facing him. In all of the practice sessions and all of that, it would be his stunt double. And then for the actual thing, it's Henry, you know, who actually was incredible. He didn't show up for any of the rehearsals. And we had rehearsed this fight scene for, at this point, over a week. Yeah. And the stunt coordinator was going crazy, almost threatening to walk off the job because he couldn't get Henry, you know, Henry was still, had started shooting and all that. He couldn't get him to come in and go through the whole kind of thing. And so Henry kind of eventually, it's the day we're shooting it, and Henry comes in about an hour before the scene is due to be shot. He goes through the whole thing, something that took me over a week to learn, and Henry just has it like that. And it's like a whole dance routine, quite complex. Yeah. And he's at the center of it. He had way more to remember because there's people coming at him from all angles and there's all these different things. He was amazing, actually. I don't know. I was chatting to him afterwards and I said, Henry, how on earth did you remember all those moves? I've been doing this for like a week and I'm still making mistakes. And he was just saying like he's done so much of it, like from stuff like shooters and even, I suppose, fights when he's playing Superman and all of that. It's all choreography. It's like an intricate dance.
But do you think you could have hurt yourself?
Easily. Yeah, I'm very accident prone. Right. Because you're on when you're on the set, sometimes it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like in a hall with mattresses and all that you can fall on. It's, in this case, we were in a cave and it was all like rocks. It was slippy and it was pebbly and all that. So you can hurt yourself very easily.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. And the Moon Boy, did they give you more lines than you were originally supposed to have? You know what I mean? He seemed to me like a character that they went, you know, this guy's good. Let's get him in a bit more. He's funnier than we thought he was going to be, or something. You know?
No, not really. No, a lot of it was in the script, and I think I probably improvised the odd bit here and there, but it was the writing was very good in Moon Boy. You know, it was all there. So the character, Uncle Danny, would kind of show up for one episode in each of the series. I think I had very little in the second one. I had a bit more in the last one. But no, it was all there. I mean, the lads were great writers.
Is it though? I mean, you said it yourself, and this is what I would have thought with the acting. Is it you have to wait for you audition and then you like in music we were saying about, we can talk about the pitfalls and the downsides of it, but the fact of the matter is you can make something happen out of nothing.
Exactly. And that's the great power of music. Yeah. That's the great power of if you can write a song and then you record it, and then you can get on the phone or the email and you can hustle some gigs, you can put it out, you can hustle for airplay, you can do all that. At least you're being proactive and you can do something. Whereas that is the frustrating thing with acting. Somebody else decides whether you work or not. Yeah. I auditioned for something a couple of weeks ago that I can't say what it is because, but I was really hoping I'd get it. And then I got the email this morning saying I didn't. Yeah. So you just kind of, at this point, I suppose I've had enough of that stuff over the years. It doesn't really bother me. But at the same time, I was like, I would have liked that one now. Be a good one. And I did a really good tape for it. I actually put a good bit of time into kind of thinking about this character and even learning the lines and the scenes. And I got another actor to do the tape with me. So I put time into it, and I think I did a good job. But I understand it obviously went to somebody who they saw as being more fitting that role. Yeah. So, that doesn't bother me at all. And I think, the right person gets the role in the end. You know, it could be just maybe you're physically bigger, smaller, older, younger, or whatever. You know what I mean? You're just the right for the role. And I'm absolutely fine with that. But like I say, somebody else decides. Whereas that's a great thing about music is that if you are making your own music, that you can do it, Yeah.
So I mean, moving, 2022, The Walls, the singles, and then the album. Obviously, you've got some big festival, the Stunning. It was an anniversary year. But what is the anniversary? I saw it on some poster. I was going, what's the anniversary? It's not an anniversary, is it? Is it?
An anniversary for who?
For you, for the Stunning.
No, I don't think.
No, I didn't. I saw something on a poster saying there's something 30th anniversary. I was going, no,
you know what it might have been? It's actually, it's 10 years since the last Walls album, which is really hard to believe. It could have been that maybe, because I know I had put something up on social media, but the Stop the Lights album is 10 years old this year. And I'd put something up on social media, and the great Dan Hegarty on 2FM did a little piece on it. We had a quick chat. Because he got in touch and he said, my God, I can't believe it's 10 years since that album came out. I couldn't believe it either. No. But then in a way, like it doesn't feel like it because like the last 2 years didn't really exist.
No, exactly.
Especially 2020, But I mean, the music industry, I mean, it is, people, it's funny when sort of the lockdown was lifted there, whichever lockdown it was, it gets confusing. But people were saying to me, oh, it must be great to be back. You probably heard that as well. Yeah. I mean, the music industry is limping back. Yeah. And an awful, 3 of our festival shows this summer are rescheduled from 2 years ago.
Okay, I didn't know that. No,
Revival in Listowel, the Galway Arts Festival, and the Forest Fest in County Laois. They were 2 years ago.
Right. Okay.
We were booked for those. And so it's like for an awful lot of artists now, the calendar is stuff that, rescheduled stuff. It's going to take a while for venues and their calendars to kind of settle down because an awful lot of it is rescheduled stuff and then newer gigs that are, new bookings. So there's kind of a waiting list to get into these venues now.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it's going to take some time before all the rescheduled stuff is out of the way and then, newer shows can be announced.
I'm going to prod you here and I'm going to say I'm looking forward to some new music as well from you and Joe in whatever format, be it Walls or be it the Stunning. I think it would do well. I think that
you know what my problem is, Brendan? I like too many different types of music. I listen to all kinds of music. I have an old iPod that's there on the shelf, and it's got like all my music, most of my music collection on it from over the years, all the stuff I like. And it's usually just on shuffle during the day. So anything could come on, like it could be jazz.
But I think it sounds like you. It sounds like you. It doesn't matter I mean, some of the Walls tracks sound like the Stunning, and some of the Stunning tracks sounds like, it could be the Walls. I mean, it's for the obvious reasons. Essentially, you tend to listen to the guitar and the singer. Which is why Stunning fans will be interested in Walls music, and Walls fans would be interested in.
I mean, do yourself and Declan ever have these things, or would you ever kind of go, "Oh, I'd love to make an album now of kind of like electronic beats with really groovy"?
I tell you what. I had. Yeah, I had an idea.
I listened. You know what came on the other day? Underworld, came on, and it was, what's that track called?
Born Slippy.
No, not Born Slippy. No, that's kind of almost like too kind of well known now. But there was that one guy goes, "I need sugar. I need a little bit of sugar," and and it came on, and I just thought, because that was probably done early to mid 90s or mid 90s on old kind of drum machines, analog gear, and it sounds fantastic. Like the drums, the programming is really fat, and the synths and all on it. And it's I wish I could remember the name of that song. And I listened to it and went, wow, I'd love to make a record like that. Or if somebody else was doing that kind of music, I'd love to sing.
But I think that here's a bit of advice. I think that I have to take, so I'm going to maybe give it to you as well. You can choose to ignore
Gladly.
it. I think that we have to sort of get out of our own way a bit and be a bit more slapdash about putting stuff out.
Yeah.
Be a wee bit more, because I mean, we're terrible at taking forever to be, people would used to say to us like, "I loved your band." And we'd be still making the new record. It's like, we could know. It's oh, you're making a new, are you? It's like, as in, because it's been 5 years between that and the last one.
But we're the same. We're the same.
So So I mean, that's not good. Like, I mean, I think that especially as you say, the way it is currently, where basically people are putting out stuff a wee bit more often. So I think that's what the advice is. Really, what I'm saying to you is what I'm saying to me, which is I'd love to hear more new, stunning stuff, and new Steve and Joe songwriting, because I think it's the songs that ultimately, it's no accident that you have big songs as both the Walls and the Stunning, because it's essentially, it's the songwriting and the melodies and the choices as you make as writers that just whatever you do just has a sort of a, pop's the wrong word, but it's certain. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly.
There's definitely pop in there, Brendan.
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, and I think the four of us and ourselves came from a similar place in that regard. That we always would want to have at least a couple of singles on an album.
Yeah.
Because you knew that you needed them for airplay was important, and having the song on the radio meant bums on seats. It meant bookings. It meant getting on festival bills and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of knew the importance of radio, and that probably did. And like we were saying earlier, playing the nature of the gigs we did, there was a lot of kind of playing stand-up gigs. We weren't playing to sit-down audiences in theaters. We were playing in nightclubs and big bars and dance halls and all kinds of places, and then at festivals and all around the country. So we were playing to stand-up audiences. And if you didn't get them kind of moving and engaged, then you weren't going to last,
Yeah.
So, so we were putting out songs that were with choruses, and songs that with memorable maybe guitar riffs and things like that. So they were all kind of, you were doing it because you knew you needed at least a few songs. And then you'd have your kind of album tracks that were very often the band's favorites, where you didn't have to sort of hit those marks.
Well, speaking of which, I end these chats always by asking the person I'm talking to pick one of their songs. I know it's it's not an easy thing to do, but really just to pick a song that we can go out on, something that we can end the show on. Is there any song that you'd like to pick off the top of your head, and could you give me the reason why you're picking it?
Okay. Well, one just sprung to mind. Now, it might be, I don't know, would it be a bit too up-tempo or guitar-y, as we used to be told sometimes when a single didn't get played in the radio? It's like Brewing Up a Storm. It got no radio airplay when it came out originally because we were told it was too guitar-y.
Wow.
Yeah. It was actually the first Stunning single not to enter the charts and got no airplay. It was a complete flop as a single.
Brewing Up a Storm?
Yeah.
How did it? What happened?
And then just from gigging all the time and playing the song, and then the album came out, and it was on the album, and it just became known through the album. But it was a complete flop as a single. It was our fourth single and the first flop. And then it just became this kind of, over the years, it just became
the big song
anthem. And we didn't even have to, we weren't really that involved in it anymore. We just played it. But there's a song on the Wall's second album. The album's called New Dawn Breaking. And there's a song on it called Passing Through. And I always loved that song because there's a sort of, I remember when we just came up with it, it's very much a kind of a rock band. We all recorded it in a room together, electric guitars, drums, bass. And it had a kind of an energy to it that reminded me in a way of Iggy Pop, maybe with a Beatles song over the top or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was an energy to it. And it's sort of a simple enough set of chords, but it has that, I don't know, there was something about it when we hit on it. And I just started belting out this vocal melody with gobbledygook lyrics. And I remember at the time that kind of the hairs stood on my arms and the back of my neck. And I kind of felt, I really like this. And then there was the challenge of capturing that in a recording studio and in the mix, you know, but we did eventually, you know, we captured it. And the song has a soulful quality to it. It's just straight from the heart. And it's about just making the most of life. And because we're all just passing through and just grabbing life by the balls and just do what you got to do and just don't be afraid to be afraid.
Great. Looking forward to hearing it.
Thanks a million, Brendan.
I know, Steve. As I said, like, you was dangerous when you put two of us together. So the next time it'll probably be on the backstage in some field somewhere where we can sit and put the world right.
If next time if we're on a gig or something together, we'll have to make sure that we're both bands are staying the night. We'll arrange that.
Defo.
So we can repair back to some residence lounge and just chew the cud all night and catch up, because there's nothing like it actually when you meet up with some of your contemporaries, because none of us get to do that really anymore.
Not enough. No, you're right.
Not enough, not enough at all. And just to share stories and information and all the latest tricks.
Yeah. Well, look, love to the bro.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah. And I'm excited to hear that the new Stray Sparks is coming sometime in 2022 after the Chrome Heart single.
We might put another single out off it just so, feed a few little things out, drip feed a few things out, maybe stick the album out in the autumn or something. But I'm quite excited about it. It's a great album. This, a lot of it is maybe music that was maybe a little bit too quirky for albums at the time. And we kind of thought, maybe it's not. But it really, it stands up well. And I'm really enjoying it.
Great. We're looking forward to hearing it. And I wish you all the best with the upcoming. I know you've got some big shows up during the summer with the Stunning. So I hope to catch you. I think I might be catching you in Laois, I think.
That's right. Yeah. I hope we're on the same day.
Yeah. Wishing you all the best in music and in the acting. And until we talk again, thanks a million for coming on and chatting.
Thanks for having me, Brendan.
Cheers, Steve.
All the best.
Until you hate it, time is a lie. cut it loose. Break out or nothing changes. Sad and confused. Don't wait until you hate it. Time is a lie. Fill it up till it spills over. Don't measure life. Looking back is gonna get you nowhere. Are we the ones? Have we begun? Are we too good to be true? Are we alive? Have we arrived? Or are we passing through? Are we the ones? Have we begun? Are we too good to be true? Are we alive? Have we arrived? Or are we just passing through? Passing through, through, through. Passing through, 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 through. Passing through, through, through.
Thank you for listening to the Please Do Something podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, just send an email to brianmurphy@me.com.